Hello students, today we'll be taking a lesson on the art of selfishness and I'm your Professor Gisi. Welcome back guys, this is Madness in Nigerian Living and I'm your host Gisi. Like I said, I will be teaching you the art of selfishness. This would be a more proper thought process on how to be selfish. Last week I released an episode on the art of selfishness, but it's a bonus episode that I'm going to delete. This week I'm going to better define the concept. First definition, selfishness. Selfishness is defined by Professor Gisi as using your well-being, your self-well-being, and your self-interest as the basis for decision making. Second definition I'm going to bring in this is how I define being greedy. I define being greedy as collecting every benefit you can get at the expense of everybody else, and in doing so harming your self-interest on the long run. So for me, being greedy is the opposite of selfishness. I feel there are a lot of lessons to be learned from being selfish, and there are a lot of benefits to be learned from being selfish. But before I jump into that, I also want to highlight what it means to be self. Self, for Professor Gisi, is a means of identifying a level of consciousness. What do I mean by that? If I see myself as a Nigerian, or being Nigerian is a part of my identity in a way that I used to define myself. What does that mean is, if I'm in a contest wherein fighting for or against Nigeria comes into play, there are certain levels wherein I will pick fighting for Nigeria over my well-being in that moment. That's what I call different levels of self. And I have broken down self to multiple layers. I have the individual self. You as an individual, the idea of individuality and your physical body, that self, I call the individual self. And I also categorize the nuclear self. The nuclear self is a sense of self that comes from close-knitted relationships, like a sense of family, a sense of friendship, because the people you interact with on an intimate level shapes the way you see your individual self, also shapes the decisions you are going to make or not make. Understanding these different levels of selves is very vital to understanding what it means to be selfish. Then the next level of self I'm going to mention is communal self, meaning your sense of identity in a bigger and a broader community. These are people that are not as close-knitted to you, but your interaction with them in society shapes the way you see yourself, shapes the way you navigate some decisions you will make. So, how does this impact selfishness? One level it does impact selfishness is this. If you, for example, want to find a lover. A lover, by my definition, falls under the nuclear self. There will be instances wherein for the relationship to work, you might have to take decisions that in that moment is detrimental to your individual self. For example, you're having a fight with your partner. This is a fight that you can see you want to say what's on your mind. But you also understand that if you say what is on your mind, you say something that will strip away your nuclear self, in the sense that it can cause a rift in the relationship and it can break the relationship, which is something you don't want. So in that moment, you compromise. So that's what understanding this different level of self does. When you understand these different levels of self, you start seeing the interaction between oneself and the other, and start understanding where to find the balance. So if you understand that in a community, in a broader community, there are some certain behaviors that the community will punish you for, to the point of maybe death or something, you are now left with the question of, is your individual expression of a higher priority than the community self? And that's why I will make a statement like the soldiers that did kamikaze were very selfish people. They killed themselves, but they were very selfish people because their community self was higher than their individual self. They are willing to end their life to kill something they feel is an enemy to their community self. And that's where it's very important to note these things. For me, a statement I like to make, and most times when I make it, people feel I do not believe in love when I say it, or I don't think in healthy love. I always say selfless love does not exist. The whole idea of selfless love in itself is just a contradiction. You can't love so much that you completely ignore yourself. What now is the motivation of loving? Love in itself has conditions to it. One of that condition is, how does love impact your nuclear self? If it is not growing your nuclear self, you will drop it. That is the truth. It's just one of those things that when you understand the nature of selfishness, you start seeing the benefit. One of the benefits is how it impacts decision making. If I'm going to make a decision, there will be instances where it makes more sense to send my last 5k to a family member, to a friend, than to use it for myself. That negates the individual self, but it helps the nuclear self. To a certain extent, might also help the community self. One of the examples I gave on selfishness in the bonus episode was, if you are in a situation wherein you are going to a new location, you have a gun. You are going to a new location, nobody knows you, in a different country, nobody will see you ever again there. I cannot logically or ethically tell you not to rob someone. I can tell you that, oh, robbing someone is wrong from this ethical basis, but for your own well-being and your decision making, I cannot tell you it is wrong for you. I can only tell you it is wrong for everyone else, and why should you care? A statement like this would be like, if I understand this, then why am I pushing selfishness? That's why the contrary comes in. For most people, they will hardly ever be in that situation wherein their actions will be far removed from their self on the long run. Meaning, even if you are going for a vacation, the way you behave in that vacation can, if documented, negatively impact your ability to go to a vacation next time. Understanding this is where selfishness makes us good people. Because if I understand that me robbing someone will negatively affect me, I'm not going to rob others. But I'm not robbing others because I want to be a good person. I'm not robbing others just because I don't want to harm myself on the long run. I do not want to be burnt. That's where greediness is the opposite of selfishness. When you see people that are greedy, they will rob someone else. And like they always say, many days for the thief, one day for the owner. When that thief is caught, it is detrimental, and that's one of the biggest problems in Nigeria. We are greedy people, and we have had many days as thief. But if we are to get better and if we are to move further, we have to adapt a selfishness mindset. And because Nigeria have a lot of fractured self, it's where it's even more important to have a selfishness mindset. If you understand the concept of tribalism in Nigeria, you see that's another concept of greediness. Because when you understand the roles your tribe plays into your identity and yourself, and understand that you are doing what is fitting for yourself, you also understand the other, because something self does inherently is identify the other. As human beings, we identify the other. When we are part of a group, we see people outside of the group. When we are part of a community, we see people outside of the community. But if you don't tune in to the balance of selfishness, you start seeing a situation wherein the other becomes an enemy to the self, as opposed to the other being another self that collaboration can happen with. That's why it's important now to understand how our selfishness plays roles. One thing I like telling people is, I do a lot of things that on paper looks good. My motivation is selfish. Then people will be like, then that's not good. I'm like, is it relevant if my intentions are good, or is it relevant the actions, the intentions are playing in your life? Because there are people with a lot of good intentions that the reality of their actions does bad, and you cannot take away their intentions because their intentions are truly good. There's actually a term for it, the Cobra effect. You can Google it. It's a situation wherein good intentions can lead to bad outcomes. So it's not about having good intentions, it's about having intentions that is best for the self. The self now having multiple layers and understanding the balance between these layers also make you understand that every other human being have their own individual experiences that give them this balance. What this forces you to do is having an empathy. Yes, I'm saying it. Being selfish is the best way to have empathy. Selfless people do not have empathy because they cannot fully understand the concept of another. Greedy people do not have empathy because they see the other as something that should be collected. When you understand how these things play out, you now start saying, oh, selfishness is not a bad thing and it can help us as a community, as a country. Then why is selfishness frowned upon? It's misconstruction of the human experience. Or I would say that this misconstruction comes from monotheism religion, the viewpoint that we have God, a selfless being that loves us selflessly and we're supposed to be like God. It removes our human experiences, and in removing our human experiences, we remove the side of us that create empathy for other humans. Yes, there have been wars all throughout the lives of humanity, but at the same time, what I'm arguing is, in a global economy that we're in, understanding the lived experiences of other selves, you also understand that your own self might be different. If you have been lucky enough to travel around the world, or at least travel around Nigeria, you see a situation wherein something you thought was wrong all your life in a different location is considered a good thing. You see a situation wherein something you thought was right all your life is considered the wrong thing in another locations. And there are little things. It can be as little as going to the pot to dish food. It can be as little as buying when you meet someone or not buying. These are the things you better understand when you understand that people in these settings do it because of their selfish interests. And when you understand it, you are better able to give them grace. And they themselves, if they do it, they are better able to give you grace. So in all of my preaching, I am saying, become more selfish. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it will be fitting to not delete the bonus episode, just to give a better context to this episode. Thoughts? Tell me what you think in the comment down below. And that's it, guys. Bye.